Deep in the cold silence of space, there was no peace, only the remains of endless war. Broken ships floated like dead metal bones across a black ocean. Some still burned softly, their fires fading slowly as if even light was giving up. Huge alien cruisers lay split open, their armor torn like paper. Entire fleets had turned this region into a graveyard that never ended. This place had a name once. Now it was only called the War Zone of Silence. No one remembered who started the war anymore. It had gone on for so long that history had turned into myth. Generations of alien species had been born, fought, and died without ever seeing peace. Every empire believed the same thing. If we win this war, we control everything. But no one ever truly won. Not yet. The broken command station, far away from the battlefield. Inside a damaged orbital command station, alarms were still blinking. Half of the station was destroyed. Air leaked through cracks in the walls. Emergency lights flickered like dying stars. Inside the command room, alien officers stood tired and broken. Their leader, Commander Vraxen, stared at the main screen. His four eyes did not blink for a long time. The screen showed the same thing again and again. Lost fleets unknown, enemy movements, dead communication channels. Nothing was stable anymore. One officer spoke in a low voice. "Commander, we have lost contact with Fleet 7. Another voice followed quickly. "Fleet 9 has gone too, no escape signals, nothing." Silence filled the room. Vraxen slowly closed his claws into fists. "How many remain?" he asked. No one answered immediately. Finally, a young communications officer spoke. "Less than 10% of our original forces, maybe less." That answer hit harder than any explosion. A war that should have ended. The war was supposed to be over long ago. The enemy they were fighting was unknown at first. Different species called it different names. The Void Hunters, the Star Raiders, the Shadow Empire. But none of those names were real. They were just guesses, because the truth was simple. No one fully understood who they were fighting anymore. The enemy did not follow normal patterns. They did not surrender. They did not negotiate. And worse, they did not fear death. Every time an alien fleet destroyed them, they returned later in greater numbers. Like the war itself refused to die. Vraxen looked at the broken map of the galaxy. "We were supposed to control this sector by now," he whispered. But instead, everything was collapsing. The first sign of something else. Then it happened. A signal. At first, it was nothing. Just static inside the communication network. Engineers almost ignored it. But then it returned. Stronger. Clearer. Every screen in the command station flickered at the same time. One technician shouted, "Commander, unknown transmission entering all channels." Vraxen turned sharply. "Origin." The technician shook his head. "It is not local, not even from this sector. It is coming from deep outside known space." The room became tense. No one had seen a signal break through like that in years. Then the voice came. Not loud, not aggressive, but calm. Too calm. The message. Every speaker in the station played the same words. "This is not your war anymore." Silence followed. The officers looked at each other. Vraxen stepped forward. "Identify yourself," he ordered. A pause. Then the voice returned. "You have fought in darkness long enough. Now you will see what you have awakened." A cold feeling spread through the room. One officer whispered, "This is a trap." Another replied, "No, this feels different." Vraxen clenched his claws. Send a reply. Demand identification. The technician tried. But before he could send anything, the system locked itself. Every control panel turned red. Every ship connected to their network started receiving the same message. Again and again. Humanity is returning. Confusion in the command room. The word humanity meant nothing to most of them. Some officers looked confused. One young analyst spoke carefully. "I have seen that word before in ancient war records." Vraxen turned instantly. "Explain." The analyst swallowed hard. "It is a primitive species from a forgotten region. They were classified as non-threatening. Their empire collapsed long ago." Another officer laughed nervously. "So, why is it speaking to us like this?" The analyst did not answer immediately. Then he said something that made the room colder, because the records also say they were removed from history after the First Galactic Council War. The silence returned. Removed from history. That was not normal. No species simply disappears like that, unless something made sure they could never return. The disturbance in deep space. Outside the station, sensors began to scream. Something massive was moving, far beyond the battlefield. Where empty space should have been calm, gravitational waves were forming patterns. Not random, not chaotic. Structured, like formation flying. A junior officer stared at the readings. This cannot be a natural fleet movement. Vraxon stepped closer. What are you seeing? The officer hesitated. It looks like ships, thousands of them, but they are not using normal jump routes. Another sensor lit up, then another, then all at once. The entire outer perimeter of the war zone began to glow with unknown energy signatures. Something was arriving, and it was arriving everywhere at once. The final warning. The same voice returned again, but this time it was closer, much closer. You have fought long enough in a war you do not understand. The lights inside the command station dimmed. Systems began shutting down one by one. Not destroyed. Controlled. Vraxon stepped back slightly. For the first time, he felt something unfamiliar. Not anger, not strategy, but uncertainty. He spoke slowly. Who are you? A pause. Then the answer came. You called us extinct. A long silence followed. Then the final line of the transmission echoed through every broken speaker in the station. You were wrong. The first fear. For the first time in the entire war, the alien command staff did not speak. No one issued orders. No one checked systems. No one moved. Because outside the station, the stars were beginning to change. Something massive was forming in the darkness. Something that had been silent for a very long time. And now, it was awake. The silence after the final message did not last long. Because silence in space is never truly empty. It always means something is waiting. Inside the broken alien command station, Commander Vraxon stood still. His mind tried to understand what was happening, but nothing made sense anymore. The systems were failing one by one. Not because they were destroyed, but because something outside was slowly taking control. An officer shouted from the sensor room, "Commander, massive energy shift detected." Another voice followed instantly. Spatial rift forming at the edge of the war zone. Vraxon turned sharply. "Show me." The main holographic screen flickered violently. Then it showed it. Space itself was tearing. Not like an explosion. Not like a weapon strike. But like reality was being pulled open from the other side. A dark crack appeared between stars. It grew slowly at first, like a wound in the universe. Then it expanded faster. And inside it, something moved. The first shape in the darkness. At first, it was impossible to understand. The sensors could not identify it. The visuals kept distorting. The energy readings were off all known charts. Then, slowly, shapes began to form. Massive silhouettes. Perfect lines. Silent structures moving with controlled precision. Ships, but not like anything the aliens had ever seen. One officer whispered, "These are not warships." Another replied in fear. Then what are they? No one answered, because the truth was slowly becoming visible. More ships began to appear from the rift. Hundreds, then thousands. They moved in perfect formation, like they were part of one mind. No chaos, no random movement, only control. Cold, sharp, and absolute control. The unknown signature. The alien scanners tried to lock onto them, but nothing worked. No energy signature. No communication frequency. No biological trace. It was as if the ships did not want to be known. A technician shouted. They are not responding to any scan. Vraxon stepped closer to the screen. Tried deeper frequency layers. We did. Nothing. It's like they are outside physics. The room went silent again. Then the analyst from earlier spoke slowly. I have seen something like this before in Forbidden Archives. Vraxon turned. Speak. The analyst hesitated. Then he said, Ancient War files, mention a species that removed itself from detection systems completely. He paused. They believed that if no one could see them, no one could target them. Vraxen narrowed his eyes, and the analyst swallowed. They called it humanity. The name returned again. But now it was no longer just a message. It was something real, something coming closer. The fleet emerges. The rift expanded fully. And then it happened. One ship emerged completely. Then another. Then a full formation. And suddenly, the sky above the war zone was filled with them. Humanity's battle fleet. It was larger than anything the alien forces had ever built. Not because of size alone, but because of structure. Every ship was designed differently, yet worked perfectly together. Some were long and sharp like blades. Others were wide and heavy like moving fortresses. Some moved like they were alive. The fleet did not rush. It did not scatter. It arrived like a thought becoming real. Commander Vraxen's voice dropped. "How many ships are there?" The sensor officer replied quietly. "Still counting, but it is impossible." "Why impossible?" "Because more keep coming." The fear of perfect silence. Something strange happened next. No engine noise. No communication bursts. No activation signals. The entire human fleet moved in silence. Complete silence. Not even background radiation interference. It was as if they had learned how to move without disturbing the universe itself. One alien pilot whispered, "This is wrong. Everything in space makes noise." Another replied, "Not them." Vraxen clenched his claws. "Prepare weapons. Now." But nothing happened. The weapon systems refused to respond. Not destroyed. Just locked. Every attempt to fire resulted in the same message. Access denied. Vraxen froze. "This is not possible." The analyst spoke softly. "It is possible if they are already inside your command systems." A cold silence filled the room. The first human transmission. Then, all screens changed again. But this time, the signal did not come from outside. It came from inside their own systems. A single channel opened. A human voice spoke. "Calm. Stable. Deep. You're still fighting a war that ended long ago." Vraxen stepped forward. "Identify yourself." The voice continued. "We are not your enemy." An officer shouted. "Then why are you here?" The voice paused for a moment, then replied, "Because you refuse to stop." The screen shifted. Suddenly, every alien ship in the region appeared on the display. Every damaged fleet, every broken formation, every dying signal, all highlighted. Then the human voice spoke again. "This is what your war created." The first movement. Without warning, the human fleet moved. Not toward the aliens, not away from them, but around them, like a circle forming. Perfect alignment. Instant coordination. Alien commanders panicked. "They are surrounding us. Fire all weapons." But nothing fired. Systems were still locked. Then something even stranger happened. The human ships did not attack. Instead, they emitted a pulse. A single wave of energy spread across the battlefield, and every destroyed ship lit up briefly. Not repaired, not revived, but recorded, as if the humans were reading the entire history of destruction in a single moment. Vraxen's voice was low. "What are they doing?" The analyst replied, "They are not attacking." He paused. "They are remembering." The truth begins to surface. Then the human voice returned again. "You called it survival." A pause. "We call it failure." The alien commanders were shaking now. One officer screamed, "Destroy them. Just fire something." But nothing worked. Every system was under control. Every network was silent except for the humans. Then the fleet stopped moving. Completely. Every ship froze in perfect formation. And for the first time, the humans allowed themselves to be seen fully. Their ships were not just weapons. They were archives. Battleships carrying history. Carriers holding entire war records. Command ships designed not just for war, but for judgment. The arrival is complete. Commander Vraxen stepped back slowly. His voice was barely audible. "This is not an invasion." The analyst nodded slowly. "No." He looked at the screen. "This is a return." Outside the station, the human fleet stayed still, waiting, watching, not attacking, not speaking, just present. And in that moment, every alien officer understood something they did not want to accept. The war had never been between equals. It had been between ignorance and something that had been waiting patiently for the right moment to return. The battlefield had never felt like this before. It was not the destruction that made it terrifying. It was awaiting. Every alien ship was now frozen in position. Weapons were ready, but none could fire. Systems were locked. Communication channels were silent, except for the humans. And still, the human fleet did not attack. They remained in perfect formation above the broken war zone, like a shadow covering a graveyard. Inside the alien command station, Commander Vraxon stood stiff. His eyes never left the screen. Every second felt heavier than the last. Something was coming, but no one knew what. The pressure before impact. One officer broke the silence. "Why are they not attacking?" Another replied softly, "Because they don't need to rush." That sentence made everyone uncomfortable. Vraxon clenched his claws. "Unlock weapons manually," he ordered. "I want full control restored." The technician tried again, then again, then again, but every attempt failed. Finally, the system replied, "No command authority found." The technician stepped back in fear. "Commander, we are not in control anymore." Silence followed. Outside, the human fleet began to shift slightly. Not random movement, but alignment, like something was being prepared. The human signal changes. The human voice returned. But it was different this time. Not just calm, not just deep. Now it carried weight. History, memory. You gathered weapons to survive. A pause. We learn how to end wars. The alien analysts quickly started scanning. One shouted. Energy spikes detected across human fleet. Another followed. They're synchronizing all ships into one system. Vraxon turned sharply. "One system?" The analyst nodded slowly. "Yes, Commander, all ships are linking together. Like a single intelligence?" "No." The analyst swallowed. "Like a single decision. The first human action. Without warning, every human ship activated. But not weapons, not shields, something else. A wave spread across the battlefield again. But this time, it was not passive. It was targeted. Every destroyed alien fleet on the screen suddenly lit up in red, then blue, then white. The sensors began recording massive data transfers. One officer panicked. "They are accessing all historical battle logs." "From where?" Vraxon demanded. The analyst whispered. "From us, from our own systems." The human voice confirmed it. "We do not need your permission to understand you." A pause. "We already built you from your mistakes." The alien crew froze. The memory weapon. Suddenly, something changed in the war zone. Every damaged alien ship began to receive strange pulses. Not destruction, not repair, but replay. Inside each ship system, recordings activated. Old battles, lost wars, forgotten massacres. Everything they had done in centuries of conflict began to play back. Soldiers screamed as they saw themselves committing acts they had long forgotten. Commanders watched failed decisions repeated again and again. Vraxon staggered slightly as his own command history appeared on the screen. "Stop this," he whispered. But no one could stop it. The human voice returned again. "You built your future on repetition. We ended ours by breaking it. The first strike begins." Then it happened. The human fleet moved again. But this time it was not slow. It was instant. A single coordinated pulse spread across all ships. And something invisible was launched. Not missiles, not lasers, not energy beams. It was something deeper. The alien sensor struggled to understand it. Then the analyst shouted, "It's database attack." Vraxon turned sharply. "Data?" "Yes. They are rewriting command structures directly." Suddenly, entire alien fleets across the war zone began shutting down. Not exploding, not burning, just stopping, one after another, like their systems had simply accepted defeat. The collapse of alien defense. A massive alien dreadnought tried to fire its main cannon. Nothing happened. Another ship attempted emergency jump. Failed. A third tried to disconnect from network control. Denied. Panic spread across the entire alien formation. This is impossible. They are turning off our fleets. We are losing control of everything. Vraxen watched as thousands of ships became silent. Not destroyed. Just inactive. Then he realized something horrifying. They are not fighting us, he said slowly. The analyst looked at him. They are turning us into something else. Into what? The analyst hesitated. Into a recorded past. Humanity's true strategy revealed. The human voice spoke again. But now it was closer than ever. We do not erase enemies. A pause. We archive them. The alien commanders did not understand at first. Then it became clear. Every ship that stopped moving was being scanned. Copied. Stored. Like data. Not war targets. But history entries. Vraxen whispered. They are not killing us. The analyst finished the thought. They are removing us from the present. The fleet of silence. The human ships now surrounded the entire battlefield. No gaps. No escape routes. But still no firing. Instead, they formed a massive structure in space. A perfect circular formation. At the center, a single point of light appeared. One ship, larger than the rest. The human flagship. It slowly moved forward. And for the first time, all alien systems unlocked. Not because they were freed, but because control was no longer needed. The human voice spoke. This is your final active moment. A long pause. Remember it well. The instant end of resistance. The alien fleet tried one last coordinated attack. Every remaining ship fired at once. A massive wave of energy surged forward. It could have destroyed planets. It could have ended systems. But before it reached the human fleet, it disappeared. Not blocked, not absorbed, deleted. Every weapon output simply vanished from existence, like it had never been fired. The entire alien formation froze again. One officer whispered, "We have nothing left." Another replied, "No, we never did." Vraxen's realization. Commander Vraxen looked at the screen. The human fleet was still there, unharmed, unmoved, unchanged. He finally understood. This war was never about power. The analyst nodded slowly. It was about control of history. Vraxen turned, and we lost that before we even started fighting. The final human statement. The human voice returned one last time in this sequence. Calm, final, absolute. You ask what we are. A pause. We are what remains after every war is corrected. The alien fleet stayed silent. No more resistance. No more commands. Only waiting. The human ships did not celebrate. They did not move forward. They simply stayed, like judges who had already given their verdict. And of part 3, the battlefield was no longer a war zone. It had become a memory being rewritten in real time. And now, only one step remained. Judgment. The war zone was no longer a battlefield. It had become something else. A frozen moment in space where time itself felt uncertain. Thousands of alien ships floated silently, not destroyed, not active, just paused, like the universe had stopped caring about them. And above everything, the human fleet waited. No celebration, no movement, only silence. Inside the alien command station, Commander Vraxen stood alone now. Most of his officers had stopped speaking. Some were staring at their screens without blinking. Others had simply accepted what was happening. The war was not ending the way they expected. It was ending the way they could not understand. The weight of final silence. Vraxen slowly walked toward the main holographic display. The battlefield map was still active, but everything was marked in a strange new way. Active alien fleets. 0 controlled systems. 0 human fleet status. Unknown war outcome. Pending judgment. That last line made Vraxen stop. Pending judgment, he repeated quietly. The analyst behind him spoke softly. They are not finishing the war like we do. Vraxen turned slightly. Then how do they finish it? The analyst hesitated. By deciding what was in the first place. A cold silence filled the room. Outside, The human fleet began to shift again. Slowly. Perfectly. Like they were preparing something final. The arrival of the human flagship. From the center of the formation, the largest human ship moved forward. It was not just bigger than the others. It felt heavier. Not in mass, but in presence. The alien sensor struggled again, but this time they did not fail. They refused to read it properly. As if even machines were afraid of understanding it too deeply. The ship stopped directly above the war zone. And then it opened, not in explosion, not in destruction, but in structure. Panels shifted like layers of reality unfolding. A massive internal chamber appeared, not filled with weapons, but with light grids, rotating data rings, and floating symbols of unknown language. The analyst whispered, "That's not a ship." Vraxen asked quietly, "Then what is it?" The answer came slowly. "A court. Humanity reveals the purpose." The human voice returned one final time, but now it came from everywhere. Not just speakers, not just ships, from space itself. "You called this war endless." A pause. "We call it incomplete." The alien officers looked at each other in confusion. Vraxen stepped forward. "What do you want from us?" Silence. Then the human voice responded, "Not surrender." Another pause. "Not destruction." A heavier silence followed. Then the final words. "Understanding." The system of judgment begins. Suddenly, every alien ship in the battlefield lit up at once. Not in warning, but in scanning. Invisible beams passed through every hull, every system, every memory core. Inside each alien mind, something strange happened. They began to remember everything. Not just recent battles, but the entire war. Every decision, every order, every loss. Every moment they justified destruction as survival. Vraxen gripped his head slightly. Images flashed through his mind. Worlds burning fleets colliding command decisions made in fear victories that created deeper wars. He whispered, "This is all of it." The analyst replied shakily, "They are not showing us punishment. They are showing us truth." Humanity's final analysis. The human voice spoke again. "We did not come to end your war." A pause. "We came to classify it." The alien fleet systems began to reorganize themselves automatically. Data flowed from every ship into the human flagship. Wars were being categorized. Defensive conflicts expansion, conflict survival, conflicts aggression, loops recursive wars. Vraxen watched in disbelief. "They are studying us like a disease." The analyst shook his head. "No." He looked at the screen. "Like a pattern." The moment of realization. Suddenly, the entire alien fleet was marked, not as enemies, not as targets, but as results. The human voice spoke again. "You are not the cause of this war." A pause. "You are the result of it continuing too long." Silence spread across all channels. Then something unexpected happened. The alien weapons were restored. Vraxen looked up sharply. "Why are they giving us control back?" The analyst answered quietly, "Because this is not a battle anymore. It is a conclusion. The choice that was not a choice." Every alien ship received a single command option. Only one. Displayed across all systems. Accept reset condition. Vraxen stared at it. "Reset?" The analyst nodded slowly. "They're offering to end the war state entirely." One officer shouted. "And what happens to us?" No one answered. Because no one knew. The human voice returned one final time. "If you continue, you remain what you are." A pause. "If you accept, you become what you could have been." The fleet that chose silence. One by one, alien ships began to deactivate weapons. Not because they were forced, but because something inside them finally broke. The endless cycle of war, hesitation, fear, survival, it all stopped feeling necessary. A fleet captain sent a final message. "We are tired." Another followed. "We accept." Slowly, the entire alien network shifted. Weapon systems powered down. Command chains dissolved. War protocols dissolved into silence. Not defeat, not victory, just ending. Vraxen's final decision. Inside the command station, Vraxen stood still. He looked at the screen, at the human fleet. at everything he had fought for. Then he spoke quietly. How long have they been waiting for this moment? The analyst answered, long enough to forget what impatience feels like. Vraxen closed his eyes. Then he gave the final order. Deactivate all remaining systems. A pause. Then, accept. The station went silent. The war that disappeared. Across the entire war zone, something incredible happened. Ships did not explode. They did not vanish. They simply stopped existing as combat entities. Weapons became inactive systems. Fleet formations dissolved into drifting structures. Command stations turned into empty husks of history. And the war was no longer recorded as ongoing. Humanity's final message. The human flagship sent its last transmission, not to command, not to threaten, but to close. This conflict has been archived. A pause. No further cycles will occur. The alien remnants floated silently as the human fleet began to turn away, slowly, without urgency, without celebration, as if nothing important had happened, because for them it hadn't. It was just another correction. The departure of humanity. The massive fleet began returning to the rift. One by one, ships disappeared into the same tear they came from. No noise, no distortion, just exit, until only silence remained. Vraxen watched as the last human ship faded. He whispered, were they always this far beyond us? The analyst replied, no. A pause. They were just done waiting. Final ending. The true meaning of the war. After humanity left, the war zone remained, but it was no longer a battlefield, no longer a threat,